I did my seminary formation many years ago in the Twin Cities. And at the college level, we had this yearly experience, which I only did once out of my 3 years there. It was called the Plunge. And we spent a weekend with $2 living as a homeless person. So the year I did it, Steve Langenfeld, who was a classmate of mine, and I decided we were going to do it on the streets of Minneapolis together. And so we didn't bathe for a number of days and didn't shave, kept wearing the same clothes so that we would smell lived in a little bit, spilled beer on us before we left that day. So we smell and look maybe like some homeless kids. We went out to hitchhike from St. Paul, from the St. Thomas campus, over to downtown Minneapolis. And the very first guy who picked us up, we're driving along, and, well, what's with you guys? We said, well, we're just kind of hitchhiking around, and we got robbed. And he said, well, that's terrible. You can come and stay with me. You're too nice. No, we're supposed to have the experience of being homeless, and you're giving us a home right away. So no, sorry, we don't want to do that. So they dropped us off downtown, and we wandered the streets. This was Friday night, wandered for a couple hours, just looking around. It kept getting colder. This is Minneapolis in October, and it was chilly. We missed the deadline to get into the homeless shelter because you had to be there before 9 at night. And so we thought, well, where are we going to spend the night? We ended up spending it in this kind of open foyer of the power company because people could come in there and pay their bills during the night. So we just kind of huddled in there, and no cops came and chased us away. But we didn't sleep real well. The next morning, we probably looked a lot worse than we did before. We got a little bit of breakfast and then decided, well, maybe we should panhandle a little bit so we have enough food for later. So we sat there and took our hats off and just sat on the sidewalk. And some people gave us money, but most people walked by like we don't look at those people. Just don't make eye contact. Don't look at them. Just keep walking. No, we got enough to eat, but that night we did go to the shelter. I think, okay, we got to get to the shelter. Well, that was kind of a crazy experience too, with a whole bunch of people snoring and talking and all kinds of things going on. I think this is a rough life, being homeless. And then Sunday we were still killing time on the street. But I started noticing that people stopped looking at us. You could smile and greet them even, and I didn't think we looked that bad, but they just kind of walked on by. They didn't want to engage these homeless kids, because who knows what they might do or what might happen. Later on, there was a number we could call, so the seminary would pick us up and bring us back, where we kind of processed the experience. But the one thing that remains with me to this day, besides some of the weird adventures that happened over that time, but that people didn't want to look at you. If they ignored us, it was like we weren't there. They didn't have any obligation if they didn't see us, didn't look at us. Just could ignore us. That experience always comes to mind when I hear that gospel. This is a feast of Christ the King, so the church gives us, over the years, 3 very different representations of Christ the King on the cross, or these ones at the end of time. But you might notice the response of the people, both the sheep and the goats. Their response was, "When did we see you? Or when didn't we see you?" It's all about seeing. The ones who took care still didn't see Jesus, they didn't think, but they took care of him. So Jesus reveals in this that that's where he was. Whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. I often think, and this is disputed, so you can quote me on this, but it's Damian. It's not anything official from the church, but I think this gospel, Jesus intends to describe what the judgment is like for people who don't know him. This is for people in China. This is for people throughout the world who never hear the good news. Because you and I, when that moment comes, shouldn't be surprised. We know. Yes, Jesus said that's where he was going to be. So when we fed the hungry and clothed the naked and visited the sick and the imprisoned, when we welcomed the stranger, that's Jesus. We know that. We can't sit there when the judgment comes and say, "What? When? I didn't see you, Jesus." Yeah, you did, and you knew better. But this is everybody else who doesn't know the good news. Even still, what haunts me is my own temptation not to see, because of the obligation that's there then. Because I know better. It's not just a homeless person. It's not just somebody who's sick. It's not just the stranger. It's not just the imprisoned. It's Jesus. That places the obligation. Think, oh, Jesus, why do you have to be here again? It doesn't happen too often here at Cabrini, but more so in my days when I was at Our Lady of Guadalupe, where I'd find somebody sleeping outside my door in the morning, because it would be a safe place. They could sleep at the rectory on the porch, and nobody would bother them. I remember a number of times at Guadalupe bringing them in for breakfast because I remembered that Lazarus story, and I don't like the ending. You know, the rich man doesn't do anything, and he goes to hell. I think, what? I don't want to go to hell on a rap for not giving somebody breakfast, so get in here and have breakfast. Still, there's that temptation in us to not look, to not see. Jesus, in the story, lets us know that he doesn't expect us to treat him in a special way. He never asks for that. He comes as servant, as redeemer. He doesn't ask to be adored or given a special place. What he does ask for is that all of us treat each other and the people in need like they were Jesus. They are Jesus. So we honor them as we would honor our Lord, with that same dignity, that same grace. Pope Francis, I think, did this recently in September. He did a little trip, and you may not have caught it, but he went to Mongolia. Yeah, the Pope should go to Mongolia. Mongolia has about as many Catholics as we do in our parish. There's just a little over 1,000 Catholics in Mongolia. Mongolia has 3 million people, but just over 1,000 Catholics. And the Pope took time to fly 8,000 miles to visit one small little Catholic community. I think, why would he do that? Because he was being shepherd. They were the little sheep. They need to be cared for. And he was modeling for us that every little one is important, not just the big ones. So this weekend, when we celebrate the feast of Christ the King, the readings remind us that you can find your King. You don't have to look very far. All you have to do is open your eyes to see Jesus in the places where he said he would be.